Okay, this is something new for me. It's a social studies video, and it's going to be a super quick history of what happened, the timeline of events that happened in American history from its founding to the end of the Revolutionary War. So you remember, 1492, important date. That's when Columbus landed in the New World. It was actually October 12th of that year that he landed in the New World. But of course, he did not land in North America or South America. He landed on the Caribbean islands. Okay, the next major event that happened in the history of the New World was that in August of 1521, Cortez conquered the Aztec. You remember that. He was not a nice guy. He used a lot of dirty tricks to capture this giant Aztec empire. Now, from that point, we can fast forward. You remember there were a whole bunch of other conquistadors who came over and stole stuff from the Native Americans and killed the Native Americans and all that stuff. And we could, but a lot of that stuff, it all blends together. What we're going to do is I'm going to give you the quick and dirty. So the next major event is May 14th, 1607. You should all know that date, at least the 1607 part. That's when the first permanent English settlement in the New World, Jamestown, was founded. And you remember all the stories of Pocahontas and John Smith and, all that stuff about Indians and fighting and blah, blah, blah. The important thing to remember is that it's the first the first permanent settlement of the English in the New World. They settled it because they wanted to get part of the action in the New World. They were sick and tired of Spain getting all the gold and all the good stuff, and they wanted some good stuff for themselves. Unfortunately, when they arrived here, all they found were trees and swamps and disease and unpleasantness. But eventually, thanks to the efforts of John Rolfe, who I think is the more important John in the history of Jamestown, they discovered the golden weed, which is called tobacco. And you remember that tobacco at the time was worth more than its weight in gold. So the Virginia colony of Jamestown became fabulously rich, and people heard about it and they all wanted to come. So there was a big influx of people. But around the same time that John Rolfe had first started setting up these tobacco plantations, a bunch of religious people who were not being treated very well in Europe decided to sail over to the United States. Actually, originally they went to the Netherlands, which is Holland, but they were unhappy there and so decided to sail to the New World. And when they sailed to the New World, they kind of were aiming for somewhere around Virginia because they'd heard about the same stuff, but they got blown off course and ended up in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And you will remember Plymouth can be spelled a number of different ways because they were phonetic spellers back in those days. There was no set spelling. And you remember that their leader's name was John Bradford. He is an important guy in history because John Bradford and the people of who came over on the Mayflower signed a document which was called the Mayflower Compact. This happened in 1620. The Mayflower Compact was really important because it was one of the first times when, can't talk and write at the same time. The Mayflower Compact was important because it was one of the early steps towards the democracy or democratic system that we have in the United States today. So that is why this Mayflower Compact is such an important document in American history. So key things, remember, 1492, Columbus, you don't have to remember the date, but 1521, Cortez conquers the Aztecs. The first major thing for the British was the formation of Jamestown. Of course, you remember they had the lost colony of Roanoke, but who cares about a lost colony anyway? Jamestown was the one that mattered. And you have to remember that Jamestown became rich because of tobacco, which shaped the history of America all the way to today, because it was tobacco that led to the creation of the large plantations which required slavery. And slavery today is still an issue in the United States, even though we don't hold and keep slaves. The things that have come down to us through time, such as racial tension and racial distrust, segregation and discrimination and racial hatred, all of those things find their roots back in slavery. Had it not been for the discovery of tobacco and other cash crops that allowed the Virginia colony to become so rich and the southern colonies to grow wealthy on the backs of the African American slaves who were the machinery that kept those plantations going, we would not have had many of the horrors that America has suffered through. We wouldn't have had the Civil War. We wouldn't have had the race riots of the early part of the 1800s. We wouldn't have had the Jim Crow laws. We wouldn't have had the Ku Klux Klan, the lynchings, and even up to and through today, we probably would not have had the horrible things that have been happening in Ferguson, Missouri, and in other places, all of which stem from this master-slave relationship that developed so long ago. Sorry, I got a telephone call in the middle of that. Anyway, where was I? Okay, Mayflower Compact. We went, we were talking about tobacco and slavery. The thing that's important to remember is that people came to the New World for many different reasons. Some of them were adventurers, some of them were out for money, and some were here for adventure and glory. Some people were here for religious reasons. And really, there's a big split. Most of the people who came to the Virginia colony came here for the money, but a group of people that we talked about, John Bradford and his pilgrims, went to Plymouth because of religious reasons, and the New England area was really colonized originally for religious reasons. So keep that in mind. Okay, next. You'll be happy to know that November 26, 1621, that's 1126, 1621, was the first Thanksgiving, Turkey Day. And interestingly enough, it wasn't until 1628 that the Massachusetts Bay Colony was actually founded. So 1628, we have Massachusetts being created as a colony. And then you had, like in rapid succession, almost every year, a new colony. In 34, you had Connecticut. In 34 was Maryland. 35 was Connecticut. 36 was Rhode Island. 38, we had New Sweden. Wow, there's an oddball. We didn't talk about that in class, but it's a really interesting one because obviously it was founded by Swedes. And that was the area of part of what is now New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. At the same time in 38, Lord Delaware, a British nobleman, created Delaware. Then a really important one in 1681, William Penn. Will Penn, you remember him. He created or founded Pennsylvania. All right, I'm going to stop there because my time is getting long. I'll make a separate one from here to the end.